Alright, good morning. So, today instead of working on a module which might take us a couple of days to complete, I'm going to work on a single script basically. So, I'll be calling these sort of streams a one-day script based on the idea of, of a one-day build. And the script we'll be working on today will be for basically repeatedly testing a line of code or a script block, measuring how long it takes to run many times and feeding back to you its fastest runtime, its longest runtime, and the average runtime. It's sort of an aid of getting a better idea of how things run rather than just running it once and going, that's how fast it runs, because quite often that's not the case. Sometimes you might get a lucky run on something, other times you might happen to run into high load on your machine for whatever reason, and your script ends up taking a second or two longer than it normally would. So this way we'll get a better sense overall of how long a piece of code actually takes to run. This is more or less an aid of my talk coming up at next year's PowerShell Summit, because if I'm presenting on ways to speed up PowerShell, I probably need a way of demonstrating that reliably. So first of all, I'm going to decide on a name, which means we're going to need to look at the approved verbs from PowerShell, or for PowerShell. And I'm thinking it'll be... See now, there's already the command, measure command. In PowerShell. And we will be using the measure command potentially, or a .NET timer or something to that effect, but I'm not convinced that measure in and of itself is the right verb for the script that we're about to write. And I'm thinking invoke. But we're going to be doing some work in parallel, so I'm not sure if we should be using invoke or start, now that I'm looking at that. And excuse my misspellings. Occurring at the same time. Alright, in that case start might be a better option, because we will be running loosely, it's an asynchronous operation. So, first things first, let's fire up a file name. And I guess we shouldn't get too attached to it because we can change it. So, start Sure, we'll start with start test case measurement. That's not sitting well with me, but it'll work for now. So we're going to end up with comment-based help in here. Do I have? I do, and that'll probably work. Let's just get a link going. So we are working out of this repo here, and I've got a folder called gallery scripts. So that can be our link. Let's truncate this a bit. Alright, just getting the framework in there for now, and we're also going to need a script info. So let's just whack in some details here. Author. That one. Alright, measures a given multiple. So runs a given script block multiple times, measures runtime, and reports back shortest runtime, longest runtime, and average runtime. And if you can think of anything else that might be useful, please do send through any suggestions and I'll look at adding them in. And now, required modules. I believe Posh RS job is how that is spelled. Yes, indeed. Just check, capital there, capital there. Cool. Alright, project URI, we go back to this one here. Might as well link directly to the gallery scripts folder. License URI, do I have anything yet? I do. We'll think of other tags later. Release notes. We don't have a icon yet. Probably won't ever. So I'm not sure if that path... Alright, sure. Let's put this... Of course it needs to be a PS1 file. Sure, let's get that description we wrote and chuck it in. Here. Since we've written that, we might as well write the synopsis, which is so it measures the runtime over multiple runs of a given script block. My spelling is atrocious, but it's alright. Just derped on commandlet binding there for a second. Alright, so we need parameters. Let's start with that. Can I hide away? No. Awesome, thanks Andrew. I've tuned it down a little bit since last time, so yeah, hoping it's good. And then from now on I'll try not to touch it between streams. Right, so I'm not sure what you've seen so far this morning, Andrew. But just since it's been quarter of an hour, I'll do a quick recap. You haven't missed much. We've basically just named the script that we're working on. Put in a script info block, just give some information, the license, the project URI, versioned it. We're going to be using PowerShell to be running some things in parallel. Quickly did some skeleton work on on some comment-based help, and we're literally just starting now to write the actual script itself, starting with the parameters. So I guess two things come to mind right off the bat, and what is hiding back there? Notepad. So two things come to mind given that we're running a script block multiple times, is that we probably need to take in a script block and we need to specify the amount of times to run it. That sort of makes sense to me. So the first thing we're going to want is that script block, I guess. And after that we need, I'm not sure of the term to use here. It's definitely in aid of my summit presentation, Andrew. Basically it's by running a script multiple times, we're going to get a better sense for how long it actually takes to run, rather than running it once and possibly getting lucky or unlucky and it taking longer or shorter than it perhaps normally would. So if we can run something 100 times or 1,000 times and get an average runtime, we should get a much better idea for how long it actually takes to run. Chances are, depending on what sort of demos I'll be doing, we might even end up using this script during the presentation as part of the live demos. So I can imagine this going through a few iterations. Because, yeah. And iterations just then was probably the word I was looking for. But let me iterations. Like I said, my spelling is atrocious, but Google's here to help. Now that is parameter, cool. So we'll default this to 100. Didn't expect VS Code to give me quite that much help on that, and this is mandatory. So at this stage I'm not planning on taking things in via the pipeline, just as a time-saving exercise. And sorry if I mute from time to time there, I'm trying to save you having to listen to me drink a coffee. So we've got our script block, we've got our iterations. We might also want a throttle. And the throttle is how many of those iterations it can run in parallel. And I think if I remember correctly, Posh RS job, which I should probably install if I'm going to be using it. But I believe it has a default throttle. I don't remember what it is. Number of concurrent running run spaces, yes. But what is its default? Five. So I guess we should probably honor that. I mean, I don't know when the last time I ran a Posh RS job command with my throttle being less than 25, and it's normally closer to 50 or 100, but we'll stick to that just to avoid any issues. I think that's all of our parameters. We're not doing any fancy taking in arrays or anything like that. Yeah, so I guess we just go straight into it. Now, I just want to test PowerShell's, get that going, PowerShell's range operator, because I don't remember if it's inclusive or not, and it is. So we're going from 1 to 100, we should have 100 entries in there. Right. So by inclusive, I mean that it's, so I've specified 1 to 100. In some languages, and for the life of me I can't remember what, but it always used to catch me out, would only go up to 99 and possibly start one higher. So if they're not inclusive, a range from 1 to 100 might have ended up outputting 2 through 99. So what I was just figuring out there is if I had to do any maths to make sure I actually ended up with 100 items. Like, for example, saying that my range was from 1 to x plus 1. But luckily I don't have to in this case. But for some reason, whenever I don't think about it, or think of it, it catches me out. So I always like to double check. The other instance where I always have to double check is when I'm doing a for loop and I never remember if I need a greater than or equal operator in there. It's just one of those things that I always have to do a little bit of extra thinking around it to make sure I don't catch myself out. So given that we're using Posh RS job, that in itself takes a script block, and actually since I had this up, so it takes a script block, and what we're doing first up is defining what happens during that script block. And I don't, does this take argument list? It does, good. So this should be fairly simple. So to keep things simple at the moment, and we might change this to a .NET timer object later, but in an effort to get this script done in one sitting, considering I do have work in a couple of hours and kids about to start waking up, although hopefully not in the next hour and a half, we'll use measure command as a way of quickly getting this up and running. And we should, so I'll be passing into this job block as an argument this script block here, which means by running args0 as an argument on measure command, we should be measuring against that script block, assuming I remember to wire it up. And I don't think I need anything else on there. But I do need to remember what the output of measure command looks like. Which, did I run an example of that somewhere? I did. So because some of the commands we'll be using are going to be pretty, well, sorry, some of the script blocks we're going to be running are going to be very quick things. Like we'll be measuring the difference between using a pipeline versus assigning a variable directly, and the differences there can be milliseconds. I'm going to be doing all my maths based on the total milliseconds, just to basically start with the lowest amount of, I could use ticks, but no, I'll use total milliseconds, and then we can do our maths later on. So it's a little bit of more heavy lifting than we perhaps need, but we'll output a PS custom object, and it is going to have I need to check something about my PS custom about my job blocks here from PowerShell job, and while I remember, I'll drop a link into chat for where I'm looking at the moment. Did I use it in here? Looks like I did. So, sorry, I'm sort of speaking in half thought out sentences at the moment, but I'm looking for, where am I defining script block? Right here. Alright, so I was just thinking I probably should name or give an identifier to these objects that are coming out. And really the object that we're sending in is just going to be an integer basically. So in theory, we'll have an iteration which can be literally just the object that we're passing into the PowerShell job, and our runtime will be measurement dot total milliseconds. And I'm hoping, yeah, that's just taking a little bit to catch up. So now in theory, sorry, I'm just thinking through if I need to do any error handling here or whatnot, but what is a range from 1 to 1 is just 1, 1 to 0 counts backwards. So that would work. Cool. So as long as a valid integer is supplied, that should be fine. So in this case, we're going from 1 to our count of iterations. When I think of it, coffee time. And we're going to pass that into, very similar to down here, so normally when I run this sort of function, and given, sorry, I'm thinking things through in my head as we go. So normally when I run some jobs in parallel with PowerShell job, I use the wait command with show progress to see a progress bar of basically how long it has to go. And I was thinking that this time round I wouldn't actually do that, but then thinking through the use cases when I'm going to be using this, it'll likely be on stage when doing my presentation at the summit, so having some visual feedback is probably actually a good idea. So I'm going to grab all of this, pop it in there. Now our name for these script blocks is just going to be the integer that's coming through. And I'm pretty sure this is just what's it called? Yeah, it's just taking time to catch up. So we'll pop in our throttle. We're not specifying a specific batch. And script block in this case is actually job block. And I've called it job block rather than script block because we have a parameter called script block, so it's probably not a good idea to overlap there. And we also have our argument list, and this one contains script block. So with it being our first argument, arg0 picks that up, so it should run here. Then we're going to wait rsjob, then we're going to receive rsjob. So let's close this so we actually have some more space to work with here. And while I think of it, let's do a quick pass to make sure we're all visible on one screen. So I want to run this and see if it works. First hurdle there is remembering where it's saved. Gallery scripts. Oh, a note about that that GitHub repository where I'm grabbing this information from, or my previous scripts from, and where this one's going to be saved is this gallery scripts folder is where I've saved any scripts that I've uploaded to the gallery that aren't a full-on module. So we've got lockout blame, test DNS zone, and test recurrence pattern. So if you ever see, well, if you ever see something in this folder, it means it's on the gallery. And if you ever see a script on the gallery from me, and you want to see the GitHub repo for it, it's here. So if there's ever any issues with it, just fire them through GitHub here and I'll see them and fix them, and yeah. Yeah, I will likely be doing a stream on it soon, Andrew, because we're going to need to fix, well, not fix, we're going to need to think of a workaround for the full creators update, because at the moment I'm not happy with how it's working. And actually, on the topic of burnt toast, I'm still blown away at how many people are actually using the thing. Because I'm lost for words, it staggers me. But anyway, I won't get distracted. So we're in here, we need to start that. We need a script block. And to keep things simple, we'll just do start sleep seconds 2. So we should have 100 iterations doing 5 at a time. And we have errors. Right, so it does need a script block coming in, does it? Let's try that again. Oh, right. I think that is coming from... Where is that coming from? Let's throw some warnings, some errors in there. And I'm let's write some errors. And I'm using errors because I believe PowerShell's job will output them for me. Yep, so that error there, given that that's coming in between starting and ending, means that it is being generated by measure command. And that means args0, given that it's showing this, given that it's showing this, means that arg0 is coming through as the integer rather than the script block as I was hoping it would. I wonder, let's just change it to 1 and see what happens. It's looking more promising. Although given that it's not showing me progress, I'm not sure that this is working. And actually, given that that is that high, and only oh, actually, you're right, Andrew. I probably should just do it in there. Well, switch to getting that back up. And because I don't actually use it very often, there we go. Oh, and it's even in the right folder. Good call. Yes, I guess we should be using this more because then we can start using breakpoints and whatnot to figure out what's actually going on here. So evidently something's not working here because this should have finished ages ago. So let's break this down a bit and see what's happening. Does it? That is exactly what I was looking for months ago. I had a David Wilson pointed it out where I had a custom binding for Control R to do something similar, but it didn't work anywhere near as good as that. And the reason Control R is because that's what I use in the ISE to toggle between them. So, just want to see. Yep, we got a bunch of those. Has more data false, has errors true. Oh, of course it got errors because I've been... So interestingly, they're all coming up as completed. They've just not been outputting any information. Let's get rid of them. So remove. Let's just run some of this stuff. So we should see, if we run that, we get 1 through 100. Given that we've set our iterations to 100. I still confused why this hasn't just worked. Let's make sure. That this works as we expect it. And of course it does. So let's make sure this works. Assigning it to measurement. Alright, I need to do that. Because out of habit, I'm still hitting Control R, but if I just change that binding, much better. Perhaps if I can type, so my user surely I can keep the default there as well. Maybe. Cool. So now both of them will do it. Sorry, that was a little aside, just noticed I was still out of muscle memory hitting Control R, and I figured I should probably just, yeah, let myself keep doing that. So there's another option we can do here, which might simplify things a bit. If we go like this and do this, isn't very efficient, but again, in aid of actually finishing this, and we can always come back and fix it up later. Let's create a PS custom object for each of them. No, you don't go there, you go there. So iteration and script. Yeah, sure, let's not be fussy about the name. You can be script block. What are you complaining about? Yes, I know, but I can't be bothered. Well, no. I don't really want to expand that out to for each object, just because. So we're doing that. We've now got iteration and script block. We should be able to pump that into here, and then our name becomes iteration. We now no longer need arguments. That becomes that, and this becomes script. So what I'm doing there is basically for each of these iterations I'm creating a PS custom object, which includes a property called iteration, which is literally just the element coming out of this range, and script, which is our script block that we're passing into the parent script. Then we're piping that into start RS job, and it will start up a job for each of those objects, running over this job block. It's going to name each job based on the iteration, so if anything does go wrong, we can... I can't see how it would help in this case, but it's a habit. What I would normally do there is if I had, say, DNS zones, I would have it be named after the host name, so if something went wrong while it was testing a specific host, I would know which host to go and look at, so which server to go and look at to solve the problem. Then it's just pulling through the throttle that we specified up there, and we're defaulting to the posh RS job default, which is 5. We're going to hold and basically wait until all of the iterations are done, and then we're going to receive the output. The output being the iteration and the runtime in milliseconds. That should get us most of the way there, then we just need to do some basic maths. So, using the terminal in VS Code, let's go ahead and do this. So again, our script block is going to be start, sleep, seconds 1, Our iterations will keep at 100, our throttle will speed up to 10, so this should take about 10 seconds to run, in theory, if my maths isn't completely off this morning. Let's run it, let's see what happens. I don't see any output from the wait rs job command. I'm not sure if that's because we're running it in this console. Just in case it is, as a sanity check, I'll also run it in here. And let's try something different this time, right? Host. Just in case it's an issue with the start sleep command running within a job, which I didn't actually consider till just then. Let's do 50 of them. So it looks like it's an issue with the start sleep command. No, it just took a lot longer to run than I thought it would. Throttle 10, running for 1 second. My math says it should be running, or my understanding is that it should spin up, or at least run 10 of those jobs at once. Each of those jobs should literally just be running start sleep for 1 second. Anyway. What we can see here, so this is sort of what I was getting at as far as needing to run things multiple times. It's a pretty good demonstration. You can see some of them took 1,000 milliseconds, 2,000 milliseconds, and it's fairly, mind you, we were running 10 of them at once, so it's, yeah. This one here, on the other hand, (24 milliseconds). That being the first one, I'm not overly surprised by, but it was settled into about 1 millisecond-ish. But good news is it's outputting what I want it to output. Now that we've got that, we need to do some basic maths on it. And just to confirm, I'm going to change this in here and see that it runs just as fast. It does. Cool. And the thing is, if that script block outputs something, I don't actually want to see it. So, let's make a quick change on the fly. Let's make an assumption here that we can assign whatever the script is to null inside the expression, and that it won't output anything. We can hope, and it works. As an aside, null equals is my go-to for when I'm trying to suppress output. The other options are things like redirecting to null, or piping to out null. Out null is probably the worst option as far as speed's concerned. Ooh, actually, by putting that here inside this expression, even if it's only a tiny amount, that's going to affect the run times. So I think I'm just going to have to live with seeing the output. Unless I can do... Let's try a quick Google. So I want... See, this might necessitate us using a .NET timer or stopwatch. Although, given that comment there, I'd assume that means that we don't see output, but oh well, we'll deal with it for now. We can have the output. So, we've got our result. Now we need to know min, we need to know max, we need to know average. So what's the best way of getting that? We have maths operators, and I'm hoping we can just give it this, and that's enough. So I'll just do min to start with. That accepts an argument count of 1. Of course not. I doubt this is going to work, but if we specifically make that an array, no. Is it possible to do? Guess we can brute force this. If we sort it, yep, if we sort, we can pick out, in theory, if it's sorted, that means that index should be the fastest, and this index should be the longest. It's not very elegant, but it might do the trick. Morning Tigger inside. geez, that is a variance. But it means we're not that far off. We just need an average. Right, I won't try and be oh, of course, I can just do it out of this. Alright, never mind me. Let's get rid of all of that. So, the default out of here is just the count. So, we tell it I want the average, the maximum, the minimum. Run it again. That's a lot simpler. So now we just frame this a little bit more neatly. We can probably just do that as a... In fact, we can cut that out and just put it onto the end of that. Then our output can be yet another custom object, because for some reason I apparently really like them. We can have minimum equals result dot minimum. Maximum and average. Yeah, so I've called this a one-day script. Looks like we'll end up with getting this in a workable state and up on the PowerShell gallery. But there's definitely some improvements we can make to this. So I think we'll do a second stream on this. It probably won't be the next stream. But yeah, there's definitely some improvements to be made. And we can use the script to test itself as we make improvements. So let's see what the output of that looks like. Not good. Object is not numeric. Oh, of course it's not, because I was silly. We want the output of that to be runtime. There we go. And now we can pretty quickly check how fast something runs. So let's put this to an extreme example. Let's do 100 iterations at a time, and let's crank that up to 1,000 iterations and see how much it deviates from what we saw here. This might take a little bit longer to run. Interestingly, our average is about the same. So let's add another 0. This will take a fair bit longer, so I'll take a little bit of coffee while we wait. Yeah, and that's gone cold. That's a reminder that we've been going for over an hour. guess it would have been interesting to see if this had much of an effect on system performance. Well, we're just coming into summer now, Andrew, so it's let's check the forecast. So it'll be 25 degrees or 77. But yeah, that looks like we're more or less done. I do want to get some examples written up the top. Just double checking all of that metadata. Cool. It requires posh RS job, which means it should prompt people to download it when they, or it should automatically install it when people install this from the gallery, which is good. So an example is for this one here. Yes, and the word is escaping me at the moment. It's probably also the topic of a science fiction novel. So I think technically we don't need the PS1 on there. Bit of tongue-in-cheek, our example is going to be a script block asking how long does it take to write a string, and we will improve. I like it. So we'll keep this example nice and short, and we'll say this example measures how long it takes to write a string We'll keep it nice and simple. Defaults to 100 iterations and a throttle of, what's our throttle? I think it was 5. So if we don't specify iterations or throttle, it's 100, 5 at a time. We'll give one more example if I can spell correctly. What's another example we can put in here that's not start sleep, because apparently that doesn't play well. Hell, okay, let's do something like URI fake example.com/fake API. Not to put too much of a finer point on it. And in this case, why do I? This is about the third time instead of iterations I've written iterations. And just because I don't trust myself to write it properly, iterations. So in this example, we are going to flood this API with requests. We're going to do it 1,000 times. And we're going to do 100 concurrently. I fully expect this would actually be more of a test of that fake API than it is of how long that commandlet takes to run, but we get the point. Oh, and I spelled example there wrong. What is... My excuse is it's 5 AM. And I nearly did it again. How long it takes to query an API. Runs the script 1,000 times. Sorry, losing my mouse across all my monitors here. So it runs the script block 1,000 times, and running 100 instances in parallel. And I know I've butchered that, and I apologise to the English language. So let's get Google to spell check that for me. There, I didn't misspell anything. Right, so we've got examples, we've got description. We probably want to put in some help here. For the parameters. Assuming I can actually do that. Guess I can put it there, but I don't want to. Let's find a recent example where I know I've done it. Right, it might not change the colouring until I've actually mentioned what parameter. So, first one is script block. Yeah, right, cool, colouring changed. So we've got 3 parameters, let's whack them all in. We've got iterations, we've got throttle. Now, I don't want to muck up the wording. But I also don't want to do a straight copy paste. So, number of concurrent. Cheers, Andrew. I'll likely get this up on the gallery before I end out the stream, so I'll tweet out a link to it. Feel free to download it, have a play. Any issues, fire them through on GitHub. Yeah, and I'll catch you next time. Run. Defaults to 5. Total number of test cases to run. Defaults to 100. So, how to describe the script block. This is the actual code we're testing, so it is the test case. Now, we don't need to be too picky about this. Cases, code slash test cases to be run. And measured. Cool, let's not be too picky about the wording, we can always edit it later. I'm wondering if I should put some validation on that. I'm not sure if mandatory would cover that, but actually, as long as it's a script block, I don't really care. Because what if we wanted to test how quick nothing ran? Which is an interesting use case. Yeah, I don't think we need any validation on any of that. So I think we're done. Right, in order to ship this off to the gallery, I'm going to need to open up a console because I've told VS Code not to load my profile, and my profile happens to have my API key for the PowerShell gallery. So, we need to go to where this document is, where the script is saved, which is in here. And let's just try uploading this thing. There's going to be a lot of stuff under there. Publish script. Start test case measurement. And this is my gallery key, which I've saved into my PowerShell profile so I don't have to show it on stream and change it all the time. Credential no, force, no, all good. So assuming I've done all my metadata properly, this should just work. And in a moment, oh, sorry, I must have accidentally had OBS and folks at one stage. The music ticker moved. Cool, so that didn't fail, which means that we should have a new item here. So I'll pop that in chat. Feel free to download a copy of that if you're so inclined, and I will install it from the gallery as well. Oh, and I didn't actually read that, but that's good. It's putting the scripts into program files, which puts them on the path. It might still be... Oh, if I trim it back to that, that might work better. It could be that it's still caching because it did literally just get uploaded. It might even be that there's some I don't think there is, but there might be some sort of validation happening behind the scenes on the gallery itself. So has this picked up a download? Nope. While we're waiting, let's get this initial work. Let's get that up on GitHub. I'm not sure why that took so long, and it might have just been that I'd accidentally selected the console. So let's check. Scripts. Cool. Which means if we open up a new console, that should be on the path, and I've already forgotten the name of it. Test case management. Test case measurement. I would have thought that being on the path should just work. Why did this say? Your system's not being configured. Section places a script into the folder, yes, which it has, and adds it to your path. Yes, it's there. Oh well, I might just need to close, possibly reboot, who knows. While I think about it, let's look at the help for that. Script, and it's looking good. It's got some weird characters up the top there that might just be some weirdness in VS Code. I'll have to double check that. So we've got parameters, total number, cool. We've got some examples, extra cool, related link pointing to the gallery. Awesome. And the gallery should show no downloads yet. Oh well, I'm sure it'll catch up eventually. Alright, so that looks like a good place to stop. We've got our script, took about an hour and a half to write. We've got it up on the gallery, we have it up on GitHub. We go check that out. Yep, we got it up on GitHub. Yeah, I think we're done. So, thanks for tuning in. I think Andrew's already shot through, but Tiger Inside, it was good to meet you. Feel free to reach out on Twitter, and if you've got any suggestions or requests for a live stream, I'm more than happy to see what I can do. Let's pull this back up in the stream showing what we worked on. So yeah, I'm still working on a schedule going forward, but basically if it's during the week it's about this time, if it's the weekend it's about 12 hours from now, possibly a bit earlier. Yeah. Aha, welcome back, Andrew. So yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. I'll schedule and tweet out when my next live stream will be. I'm thinking the next one's going to be in the weekend, probably a little bit earlier than the last one I did. It's just a matter of working around kids in the weekend because, of course, unlike 4 AM, they're actually awake. Yeah, feel free to, or please subscribe if you're interested. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.